My Mother, the Person and the Patient is an original podcast written and hosted by me, Fatuma Kuso. This podcast is about my mother, Timira Abdussamid Mohammed, Ayaya we call her, and that's the Somali word for grandmother, and her great-grandchildren call her Ayaya too, and that is their way of saying great-grandmother. As you can tell from my voice, not really the best, and because I have COVID. My sister, who lives in Columbus, came to stay with my mother and give me 10 days break, and the plan was we would go to my sister's lake house in Michigan and celebrate my late daughter's birthday. August the 14th would have been her 37th birthday. I started feeling not well on the Sunday and then tested positive for COVID. Myself and two other people, my son and my nephew, tested positive. Everybody else was fine. And I tested positive for COVID one other time at the beginning. At that time, I had my mother by myself and I was able to be a caregiver to her, just put a mask and a gown and with a face shield so I can protect her. So this time it laid me out totally. The last time I've seen my mother was August the 12th and today is the 19th of August. So I haven't seen my mother for 8 days now. We were at the lake house. We came home Tuesday night. So I straight went to the basement to not infect my sister. My other son who was here didn't go to the lake house and my mother. So my sister had been putting food for me at the stairs and I am in bed all the time. I even debated whether I should record this episode or not, but I decided to record it for two reasons. Number one, I wanted to maintain the consistency for those of you 20,000 downloads audiences that are listening to the episodes as soon as they drop on Sundays. This is for you and I appreciate you so much. Also, the chapter that accompanies this episode is a chapter that speaks to my sister's birth, my parents' first child together, and my father's reaction to it, which I think is fantastic. And I would ask my sister when she listens to it and my other siblings if they remember it the way, because this is a story that had been told and retold, and my mother would always laugh when she told that story. So I am hiding in the basement. My fever continues to come back every time. I am taking Tylenol. My sister is making some traditional concoctions for me, soups, hot drinks, ginger tea, all that I'm taking. She's watching my mother. And this is about the first time that I haven't seen my mother such a long time. And I miss her so much. But I'm so glad that I could take the break and take care of myself. My sister, my beautiful sister, is here to watch my mother. And as soon as she's doing that, I thought it was fitting for me to record this episode today and share that beautiful, like how my sister is a light for this family, to coming in from the time she was a baby to this day that she's much older. She's foundation for this family next to my parents. So my mother is doing very well. My sister is taking care of her. Last time when I tested positive for COVID, my sister was out of the continent because her late husband passed away in Somalia, and then she had some of his business and affairs that she needed to take care of. It was a good thing that at that time I wasn't really sick at all. If I'm as sick as I am now, I don't know what I would have done, because now it's like an effort for me to leave the bed. And the fact that my sister is here to take care of my mother and I can focus on myself and recover from this COVID has made all the difference. When you listen to how we arrived at my mother's diagnosis and what followed, it's so easy to see her just as the patient, to see her as nothing more than the disease that reduced her to shell of her old self. But I want to also to tell you about my mother, the person, the fierce woman that told her stories unapologetically, celebrating the beautiful parts and harsh realities equally. I want to share with you the stories she told us about her life as a girl growing up in a small village. The tales that marked her adulthood. I want to share with you all her losses and the ultimate winnings. The following chapter is one of those stories, reconstructed from my childhood memory. Timira's husband based in front of the birthing shed. His work boots pounded the gravel courtyard. "May I come in?" He was too close to the door for the midwife and her assistant's liking. "You're not to be here," midwife shouted at him. "Not where your wife is giving birth." It was mid-morning by then, and Mohammed should have been dealing with those arrested overnight in the station. "I have permission to be here from the sergeant," he yelled aloud. "Can I see her?" If she weren't in the grip of painful contraction, Timira would have laughed at him. Did he not know men weren't allowed in the birthing shed? And no man would even issue such a request without becoming the object of other men's jokes. "Not until after the baby comes," the assistant said. That didn't stop him from walking back and forth and asking those questions repeatedly. But from then on, his questions were met with loud shushing from the midwife and her assistant. Through the searing pain of contractions that ravaged her body, hearing her husband's voice soothed her. Each time the midwife or assistant stepped outside the room to coax him away, she prayed he wouldn't leave. He didn't, and she felt a closeness with him she hadn't felt before with anyone beyond her parents and siblings. Timira's daughter came out the womb crying loud, but Timira held her breath in anticipation of her husband's reaction. Mohammed was ready with the question as soon as the assistant stepped outside to fetch water. "What does she have?" "It's a girl." "A girl? You wanted a boy?" The assistant scoffed. "That's what every man wants." The statement scared Timira a little. What if he pulls away as Hassan had done, warm and close before her daughter was born, and harsh and accusing as soon as he found out she gave him a girl child? Would Muhammad behave the same way? All the excitement he'd exhibited for naught? "Be grateful that you have a healthy baby," the assistant said on her way back from the kitchen with hot water. "Alive?" he asked. "Both mother and daughter are alive?" He spoke loudly in that last question, for the woman was walking away from him. "Are they alive?" he asked again. Relief washed over Timiro hearing his question. His worry had nothing to do with the gender of the child. Those words came from fear he might have to bury both mother and child like his stepfather had to. "Yes, they're both alive." The assistant sounded gentle now, almost apologetic. "I'll call you when we are ready." She brought the jug of warm water and closed the door behind her. "You can come in now," the assistant to the midwife called out to Timira's husband, and Muhammad was inside the room before the woman finished the sentence. He didn't walk in, he leapt in and picked up the baby from Timira's chest where the midwife had placed the child. Timira watched her husband move the baby from her chest to his, the motion so gentle she feared she would miss it if she didn't stare. His face beamed. "We thank you, Allah," Muhammad repeated 5 more times, as if he couldn't convey his gratitude if he said it once. "Let's name her Ruqya." Muhammad turned to Timiro and waited, his eyes tentative. "Was that a question?" Timiro wondered quietly. No one had ever consulted her with the naming of a child. But what surprised her was that her husband had a girl's name picked before the baby was born. "Did you plan to have a daughter?" she almost asked him. Almost. But she didn't, lest she miss seeing how her husband looked at her daughter. "It's Ruqya then." Muhammad's eyes never left his daughter's face. "Like the tree in the heaven that sends its reflection to the moon, she'll hold the center of our life," he said. That made Timira's heart stop beating. At least that's how it felt. And the other two women, the midwife and her assistant, were just as stunned as she. If her husband had noticed the shocked gaze on their faces, he didn't show it. He lowered his head, placed his lips close to Ruqya's ears, and began reciting the adhan, the prayer call. "Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar." His voice boomed, filling the birthing shed with a melodious note. "I bear witness there is no God but the one God, and Muhammad is his messenger." He did that in one ear and then the other. He repeated the adhan 5 times on each ear. Timira's stepmother, father, and the siblings came 2 days after she gave birth to her daughter. Her father picked up Ruqya and kissed her so adoringly before he passed her to her stepmother. "She's so beautiful," she said. The twins wanted to see her. Farah wanted to hold her. Everyone in her family was so overjoyed. "You have grown," Timira said to the twins. "And look at you." She pulled both in her embrace. Her brother Farah was a man now. He was taller than her father, with his thick dark beard and broad shoulders. "How are you?" She felt small in his embrace. "I hope you don't have any more growing to do." "I think he does." Her stepmother handed her a large wooden jar filled with meat cut into small, bean-shaped pieces, soaked in melted butter, dried salted fish, baked peanuts, and black beans in earthen pot, mixed with vinegar, garlic, cilantro, and ground black pepper. Her tiny house teemed with family, the twins running in and out of the house, chasing each other and laughing. Even Farah seemed happy, holding his knees and speaking to her. "We have to celebrate," her husband announced the day after her family arrived. "We must," Timira's father agreed. "You have not become a parent until you have a daughter," Timira's father said. Muhammad slaughtered 2 goats and purchased 5 sacks of rice and 2 bushels of vegetables. He invited the entire neighborhood to a feast for the arrival of his daughter. Timira listened as one person or another, assuming that such a festivity would be for a boy, asked him his son's name. Timira felt a sting of such a question, the pain of the rejection that came with giving birth to a girl child. But her husband didn't seem to notice. The smile on his face from the moment he lifted the baby off Timira's arms never left him. "You mean my daughter, Ruqya?" Muhammad would say without missing a beat. Even if the question came again from the same person or someone else not far away, his answer remained the same. "You mean my daughter, Ruqya?" he would say again, with a touch of surprise in his voice. 2 days after the great party, her father, Farah, and the twins had to leave. "We're going to miss you." Timira hugged her father as he helped the children prepare to leave for home. "The house will not be the same. I wish we could stay longer, but the harvesting season is upon us." Her father's face lit up with so much relief. "But Fatima will stay with you for 5 weeks," her father said, "and will come back for the coming out ceremony." As the custom dictated, Timira's only job during the umul, the rest period after a woman gives birth, was breastfeeding the baby. That was all her stepmother allowed her to do. Fatima would take the baby out of Timira's lap as soon as she finished nursing. Her stepmother did the washing and changing. You need to rest, Fatima ordered any time Timira wanted to wash and change the baby. You only get these 6 weeks. Fatima said with a smile, you'll have the rest of your life to run after this one. She lifted the baby's tiny hand and kissed it. She is so precious. Like a queen, Timira sat there as her stepmother fixed her hair and regularly refreshed henna on her hands and feet. The Haba and the women from her group took turns shopping, cooking and cleaning for Timira. 1 or 2 of them were in her house on any given day. They wouldn't leave until she demanded they go home and tend to their families. It's like you have another family here. There was no resentment in her stepmother's voice when she said that. They are good to me. Your father and I could sleep well at night knowing you are safe here. Timira saw tears fill Fatima's eyes even though neither acknowledged it. And this husband of yours. Her stepmother pointed at Muhammad sitting across from her. He is a good man. He is, Timira said, and she deserves every ounce of it. Muhammad said as if he read her thoughts and was responding to put her mind at ease. She does, her stepmother said. After all she'd been through, Timira felt she was in the presence of something remarkable. Her husband exhibited a love for her and her child she'd never thought possible. She was in awe of how much he'd struggled in the morning before heading to work. We'll be here when you get back, Timira reminded him more than once. Still, it took him 3 times to leave for work. He would walk toward the door, only to return, put his hand on the baby's forehead, and recite verses from the Quran. You can go now, Timira would say, laughing. I promise not to leave while you are at work. One of those days she'd noticed her husband flinch. Perhaps it reminded him of what she had done in her past life. I'm not going anywhere, she spoke seriously. I'll be here, she repeated until she saw the muscles around his jaws relax. Timira felt grateful that she had a healthy baby girl, a husband who reveled in her and her daughter's presence, and cousins and friends who left her wanting nothing. Her life was so good. Sometimes she held her breath and waited for things to fall apart. She expected a disaster to strike it at any moment because she didn't deserve all the kindness surrounding her. But that never happened, and she was only too grateful for that. My Mother, The Person and the Patient can be found in Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please remember to follow, like, and share, and join me next week as I share with you another episode of my mother's journey as both the person and the patient. Thank you.